use this review to help you study for the trimester test. I've compiled several questions that are subjects that you guys said you had the most difficulty with, so you can skip around in the video, pause it when I put a question on the screen, and then don't press play until you actually have tried solving it yourself. Copy down the following diagram and figure out the angle measure for angle A, angle B, and angle C, as well as their relation to the angle that's already marked as 43 degrees. Once you've done this, then play the video and listen to my answers. Angle B is vertical to the original 43-degree angle, which means that angle B is also 43 degrees. Both of these angles are acute. Angle A and angle C are both supplementary to the original 43 degrees because they add up to 180 degrees in total. Notice the straight line down the middle. So, therefore, if we do 180 minus 43, we get that both angle A and angle C are 137 degrees. That is an obtuse angle. Now, if you were looking for adjacent angles, any two angles that are next to each other are adjacent. So A and B are adjacent, B and C are adjacent, C and 43 degrees are adjacent, and 43 degrees and A are adjacent. Let's continue with angles. If you have a diagram, such as this one, now we're looking for the value of x. So we can first say, well, we know that the three angles in a triangle have to add up to 180 degrees, but we only know one of those three angles. However, we can figure out this angle up at the top of the triangle by using the vertical angle. So we know that this angle is 88 degrees. Now we have two out of the three angles in our triangle, and we know that they all add up to 180 degrees. So we do 180 minus the sum of 88 plus 45, and we get 47 degrees. We want to double check to make sure that these three angles add up to 180 degrees, and they do. Remember that the interior angles of a triangle always add up to 180 degrees, and the interior angles of a quadrilateral, or a four-sided polygon, always add up to 360 degrees. Another topic many of you asked for was graphing linear equations, so let's graph the following three equations. Y equals negative 2x minus 4, y equals 6, and x equals 4. In order to graph these, we want to make an input-output table. So for each one, we're going to choose values for x, and it's best if we choose low numbers, a positive, negative, and 0. So why don't you pause the video now, try making an input-output table for each of these equations, and then check your answers with mine. So I chose negative 1, 0, and 1 for my inputs for x, and my outputs were negative 2, negative 4, and negative 6. So the points I'm going to plot are negative 1, negative 2, 0, negative 4, and 1, negative 6. The next two equations are special kind of equations. We have y equals a constant and x equals a constant, so we know we're either going to have a horizontal or vertical line. For y equals 6, we can choose any inputs we want, but our output will always be 6. For x equals 4, our input will always be 4, and our output could be anything you want it to be. Now we want to plot each of these points on the graph and ensure that they make a straight line. Since our unit is linear equations, each one of them should make a linear equation or make a straight line. So if your points don't come out in a straight line, you want to either double check that your table is correct, double check that you graphed them correctly, or what I like to do is add another point or two so you can easily see which points make a straight line and see where your missed point is. Now I'm going to graph my points. And luckily, my points all came out in a straight line. However, I'm not graphing points, I'm graphing a line, which is an infinite set of points that follow our rule. So I have to make sure that I draw the line and connect the points, and of course, you should use a ruler, and label your line. So this line is all of the points that follow the rule negative 2x minus 4 equals y. This next one is all of the points where y equals 6. In this next one, even though I chose 4, 123, I could keep adding more points that actually do fit on the graph and see that this line is the line x equals 4. It's a vertical line, so it is not a function. The next topic that you asked for was solving equations. In this particular equation, you need to distribute a fraction, and there's a variable on both sides. Try pausing the video and solving it yourself before you check it with my solution. The first thing you have to do is distribute the negative 2/3 to the negative 12x and the positive 9. Now, I happen to know that 2/3 of 12 is 8, and since I have a negative and a negative that I'm multiplying together, their product will be positive. But if you weren't sure, then do the calculation over to the side. So we have negative 2/3 times negative 12, which of course becomes negative 12 over 1. Now, I have two options. I can simplify this to 24 over 3, and then say, well, 24 over 3 is 8. Or I can take my negative 2/3 and my negative 12 over 1, and since I'm multiplying, I can cross-simplify. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into negative 12 negative 4 times. So now, in my numerator, I have negative 2 times negative 4 to get 8, and I have 1 times 1 to get 1. So again, I have 8. I do the same thing for the negative 2/3 times 9, and I know that 2/3 of 9 is 6. The next thing I need to do is combine my like terms on the left-hand side. So my next line is 8x plus 10 equals negative 5x combined with 8. Now I want to move the variable to the same side, so I can either subtract 8x from both sides or add 5x to both sides. I'm going to choose to add 5x to both sides. This gives me 13x combined with 10 equals 8. Now I need to get rid of my tag along, so I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides, leaving me with 13x equals negative 2. Remember that a positive combined with a negative, we take the sign of the number with the greater absolute value, which in this case is our negative 10. Our final step to isolate x is to divide both sides by 13, so we get x equals negative 2/13, which is already simplified for us. Another topic that you asked for help on was geometry word problems. For example, this problem. The perimeter of a rectangle is 62 inches. The length is 2 less than twice the width. What is the length? Pause the video and try it on your own, and when you're ready, press play and watch my explanation. Don't forget to make a key. My key for this is going to be a rectangle. We know that we're going to have a width and we're going to have a length. Now we're told that the length is 2 less than twice the width. So if I call my width x, then my length is 2 less than, so I have a minus 2, twice the width. So I have 2x for the twice the width and 2 less than that, so the minus 2. To help me remember to include all 4 sides, I'm going to fill in the other sides of my rectangle. Now that I have my key, I need to make my equation. So we use the first sentence that tells us the perimeter is 62 inches to make our equation. So 62 is the sum of all 4 of those sides. So x plus 2x minus 2 plus x plus 2x minus 2, or 6x minus 4. Now I solve my equation by adding my tag along to both sides. So I have 66 equals 6x, which means that 11, or 11 inches, is x. If I go back to my key, that means that my width is 11. However, the question says, what is the length? So I know that 2x minus 2 gives me my length, and if x itself is 11, then that means that I have 22 minus 2, or 20 inches for the length. The last thing I should always do is double check. So if I have 11, 11, 20, and 20, is my length 2 less than twice the width? Well, twice the width would be 22, and 2 less than that is 20, so that's good. And now I want to see, is my perimeter 62? And it is. So I've completed the problem. One final thing that you guys asked for help on was finding the area of composite shapes, such as this one. Now, this looks like it's made up of a rectangle and a semicircle, or half a circle. I dotted in the line in purple that's dividing the semicircle and rectangle because it's difficult to show on an iPad, but we want this big shape right here that goes all the way like this. And we want to find both the area and the perimeter. So let's start with the area. In order to find the area, we're going to think of this like two separate shapes and add the areas together. As always, pause the video, try it on your own, and then check your answer with mine. The first thing I always do is I write out what I'm finding in words, so I have the area of a rectangle plus half a circle. Then I fill in my formulas. So a rectangle is length times width, or base times height, and half a circle will be half of our circle formula, which is pi times radius squared. Now, my length and width, or my base and height, always have to be perpendicular to each other, and we're given the dimensions 15 and 10. Then for my circle, I use 3.14 for pi, and my radius is half of the 10, because 10 is the diameter, so it's a 5. And when you plug this into your calculator, you get 189 and 25 hundredths, and we need our units, which are centimeters squared, because we were finding the area. Now let's find the perimeter. The perimeter is made up of three sides of the rectangle, a 15, a 10, and another 15, and then it's also made up of half of the circumference of the circle. Notice that we don't count the dotted line because that's not on the outside of the shape. So I have 40 centimeters plus half of the circumference, and my circumference formula is either pi times diameter or 2 times pi times the radius. In this case, since the diameter is given, I'm going to do pi times diameter. So my perimeter is 40 for the three sides of the rectangle plus half of 3.14 times my diameter of 10. And when I multiply these together and add it, I get 55 and 7/10 centimeters. The units is centimeters because it's just one dimension. It's not the area and it's not the volume. Remember, we always want to write down the formula, substitute in the numbers that we know, and then check to make sure that our answer makes sense. You can use a calculator for this kind of problem, but you should always see to make sure it makes sense, and also do as many calculations in your head as you can so that you don't make any typos. Now, if you finish this video, go and try the review packet or work with a friend, quizzing each other. Remember that you have the vocabulary day tomorrow, so it's most important that you study that, and then you can come and ask me any questions that you have. You can also email me if you had trouble with anything, and you'll be great. We've worked very hard, and you've already learned all of this material.